Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I thought we'd delve into some leopard gecko care guides and rate them. We'll be looking at guides from the following places. So Pets at Home, which is a popular pet store chain in the UK. Petco, because yeah, see my dear Petco video. We'll also be looking at Petsmart's guide as well as the RSPCA's, because that's a charitable organisation here in the UK who aims to stop animal abuse, so let's hope their information is correct. Now, I've been wanting to do this video for a while, but I've been kind of putting it off, and then I saw Emmy from Emmyology do it for rat care guides, and I thought, you know what, let's just go for it. Now, I'm going to try and not be nitpicky. I won't read the entire care guide to you, but I will link them all below if you want to read them in full. But what I will do is read them myself, highlight points that stand out to me, whether that information is accurate or completely wrong. We'll do a 3 strikes and you're out kind of thing, so if there's a piece of information that's incredibly incorrect and all the information provided could potentially put the gecko in danger, then that will call for a strike. However, if the care guide provides exceptionally good information, that will call for a massive thumbs up, and a strike can be reversed with a thumbs up and vice versa. And by the way, if you've noticed that my voice sounds a bit weird, it's because I've had a cold and I'm still recovering, but I really wanted to make this video, so I'm doing it anyway. But first we're going to look at Pets at Home's care guide. Now, a lot of people ask me about my opinion on Pets at Home. I actually got Diego from there. He lived on his own in a tank with reptile carpet. It was high up, so no kids could go along and bang on the glass, which is so annoying when you see that in a shop. The only downside is their so-called reptile expert said he was 100% a girl because they only get girls in, even though from him just lying down in his tank I could tell he was 100% a boy. That shop that I got him from no longer sell reptiles. I think it's just that people weren't buying them enough, so it didn't make sense for them. But I do find that Pets at Home stores vary from store to store. Most that I've seen are okay. I have recently discovered a shop called Jollies. I think it's kind of new in the UK. There's loads of new ones opening near me. And what I found was not only did they feed the feeder insects that they were giving to their geckos, but also the feeder insects they were selling, which I think is really good. But they actually dusted the geckos' food, which is so rare in pet shops. Even the reptile shops, I rarely see the food dusted. So that was really nice to see. So props to at least my local Jollies. Anyway, back to the care sheet. So this one's pretty short. They introduce a leopard gecko. They say they can become very friendly pets. They don't require a huge amount of space to live, are best kept alone, and they have a lifespan around 20 years. So first things first, good on them for saying not only do they live for a long time, but also they should be kept alone. Then we have the feeding section, which is very straightforward. They talk about the fact the geckos eat insects and require fresh water, your standard kind of stuff. Next is about where they live. And honestly, this bit surprised me in like a good way. They talk about providing lots of hides, lots of places to climb, as well as a moist hide for shedding. So that's awesome. But they also mention that leopard geckos are what's known as crepuscular, which means the most active dusk and dawn. Now this surprised me because a lot of places are still a little bit behind. Even if you watch some of my older videos, you would have noticed that I would have called them nocturnal, but it has become more and more apparent they're actually crepuscular. And so to see this in a care guide, to me that seems that it's really up to date, and that's really good to see. Now they also mention about using a thermometer for the temperature. However, I think here would be good to mention about using a thermostat, as that is the actual thing that controls the temperature. And it blows my mind that not only do these care guides generally not mention a thermostat, but shops don't always. And actually thermostats can cost a lot of money, and I don't understand why a shop wouldn't push that, not only for the safety of the animal, because it's pretty much essential if you're using any heating equipment, but surely they get money from that. So maybe don't push your coloured lights or whatever you're trying to push, but push actual equipment that ensures the safety of the animal. And that's not just directed to Pets at Home. Like, there's a whole range of just general pet shops and reptile shops that I think should push that a bit more. But yeah, the care guide finishes off by saying ideally these are for older children, probably aka teenagers, and adults, and they're available in selected stores. honestly, I was actually quite impressed with this one. Though it's kind of short and doesn't mention supplements, there are other pages on their site that go into more detail on those subjects. Next, let's look at Petco's care guide. So this is mainly in bullet points. We're going to quickly skim through it. So surprisingly, they actually mention that the food needs to be gut loaded, and they mention how to determine the right size food for your gecko. They also say to feed daily. Now, this I'd recommend feeding daily to like 0 to 6 month old geckos. Obviously, you don't want to do that into adulthood because that could lead to obesity. However, to my surprise, they actually advise that you supplement the food, which, coming from Petco, is actually amazing. I have to say, that is good. That's really good information. I always go on and on and on about gut loading and supplementing. It's so important. Next, they talk about housing, and it's all well and good until we get to the substrate. Now, the only one out of these I'd recommend is probably the carpet. Sandy chips and calci sand is a massive no. That is definitely a strike. Now, lighting wise, they say they're nocturnal. That may need updating. I'm not going to hold that against them. They then talk about normal behaviour. There's some good advice there, but once again, being a little bit nitpicky, they're not nocturnal, and they probably shouldn't be burrowing in calci sand. And the rest of the article is about cleaning them and so on. And honestly, I was quite surprised this wasn't too bad. I think the substrate is the biggest issue here, but I am glad that they mentioned things like supplementing and gut loading. Now we'll look at the RSPCA, which stands for the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. I believe in America you have the ASPCA. Now, I will say a few years back I did notice on their care guide that they had calci sand on it as a recommendation, and I did email them and I believe they did change it, but since then I haven't really checked back, so this will be sort of fresh eyes looking at this care guide. Now, we will be looking at the shorter version of this because there is also a PDF, and from what I've read, and I've kind of skimmed through it, it's incredibly detailed and very accurate, so definitely give that a read. But for this video, just to keep it short, we'll look at the shorter version. And one thing I will say that is a little bit disappointing about this is the main photo is of a leopard gecko on sand, but let's hope they don't advise that. So let's quickly look at this. So it says they can live 10 to 20 years. I mean, I would probably say 20 years or more, but that's kind of nitpicky. So they talk about the minimum size tank for an adult, 60 by 40 by 30, fair enough. They actually talk about creating a thermogradient, which is very important, and surprisingly this is the first care guide I've seen not only mention that, but also mention UV. So I feel like it's really moving with the times, and though yes, you can supplement D3 if you wish, and I did that for years, I strongly believe UVA and UVB are massively beneficial to our reptiles, so it's nice that the care guide doesn't say leopard geckos don't require UV. They talk about, yeah, they can benefit from it. So that's nice to see. Now the next part talks about hides and substrates, and they actually point out that you should not use calci sand or beechwood chips, which I was very, very happy to see. They also talk about their diet, gut loading and supplementing. So I couldn't actually find anything wrong with this guide. The PDF guide is even more detailed, so I'd highly recommend reading it, but yeah, this one gets a pass from me. The last one we'll be looking at is Petsmart, and trust me guys, this has been worth waiting for. So they start off with 5 facts about leopard geckos, and one of them isn't entirely correct. They say leopard geckos live in deserts and they're nocturnal. I feel like by now we should have moved away from this idea that leopard geckos live in these big sandy deserts, when a lot of the time it's rocky grasslands. Even recently they've been sort of spotted in Nepal, which is a vastly different environment. So it seems really outdated to say, oh, they're in a desert, they're nocturnal. The first part talks about their setup, and this cracked me up in all the wrong ways. It's like laugh crying. So they say leopard geckos originate from the deserts, and naturally they love warm, dry environments, but they also need hiding places that are moist and lovely. This is where they retreat to when it's time to shed their skin, fair enough. But then they go on to say up to 3 leopard geckos can live in the same terrarium, but only 1 should be male. What? That's a big red flag there. That's like a strike. That should be a double strike. Okay, that's horrible information. Not only should they not be like all housed together in a small terrarium, but definitely under no circumstances, unless you're some sort of serious breeder, should you put a male and female together. Now they go on to talk about terrarium size, and once again, this sort of thruple-free gecko situation just continues. Why are they pushing the idea of housing 3 geckos together? In terms of temperature and humidity, they say 85 to 95 is best. I'd probably stop at 90 to be honest with you. I also wouldn't recommend a heat light. I would say if you use a heat mat or ceramic heat emitter or deep heat projector and you wanted some light, an LED, you could use a UV light. You could use, I think if you're using a UV, more thought should go into that in terms of the power of it and the supplementing side of things. But if you just wanted to light up the tank, I would definitely say more like an LED rather than using like a heat lamp, because when it goes off at night, everything gets cold. Anyway, they also don't mention thermostats here either. Then we get into the good stuff, setting up a gecko's home. And prepare yourself, guys, because it gets really bad. Use a layer of calci sand substrate 2 to 3 inches deep, or reptile carpet. Like what? Like surely that's 3 strikes now. You know things are bad when your care guide rates lower than Petco's. You know? I actually, like, in my mind, from what I've seen from you guys, I always thought Petsmart were a little bit better than Petco. And though I don't think the care guides necessarily reflect what's going on in their stores, Petsmart, this is not good. And what's really weird I found about this guide is it feels like it's aimed at children. So like this part reads, lizards like to play hide and seek. Like, when I think of people going to get a gecko, even myself, maybe you're a teenager, maybe you're an adult, like, lizards like to play hide and seek. It just seems like it's aimed at the completely wrong demographic. But yeah, I think it's safe to say when we see a care guide, it will usually cover the basic things, and even then, it doesn't even get everything correct. And this is why it's essential to do as much research from a range of sources as possible. So one care guide or one pet shop employee will not be able to explain the entirety of the care of an animal. With my channel, I try to take not only my experience, but things I've read and new information, like, I want to move with the times. You'll notice that I've gone from heat mats to deep heat projectors. I now use UV. I'm more naturalistic tanks. I'm aiming to go bioactive in the future with my Leopard Gecko tank. So I really want to keep expanding, keep moving with the times, and just improving the lives of my geckos in captivity as much as I can. So I try to get all that information, that up-to-date information to you guys. But of course, feel free to look in other places for information. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe. But thank you for watching, guys, and goodbye.